I now join kawser.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kawser Ahmed, and as I said, I am actually uh, I lead this project that you have booklet in front of you, and it's a public safety funded project. And this is one of the reasons I am recording it because we need some way of showing about our interaction with you. So I'm very happy to have you here this afternoon. And most importantly, the next couple of minutes, we'll talk about the project background and how this toolkit came into being, and a couple of suggestions from my side, our side. And I'm also happy to have Izzadin Hawamda with us. Izzadin is my friend, and he sits in my not-for-profit as an advisor. Plus, we actually I graduated from Peace and Conflict Studies, so he also is a student there. So, just to start, the idea of this research uh, came to my perception for a single event that happened in our city. In 2018-19, if you remember, there was a case that came into Winnipeg Free Press first about Mr. Aaron Driver. Any background? No. So Aaron Driver is a regular kid, but I mean, I don't want to use this term white, black, all this stuff, but nonetheless, just to categorize, he's a regular mainstream kid. So he converted to Islam, and remember at this point in time, it was height of ISIS recruitment and all this stuff. So the reason Winnipeg Free Press covered it because he was posting some messages supporting this extreme group. So naturally, law enforcement agencies, drew attention to them, and they were drawn into, and they went and spoke about it, and he was taken into, I would say, light custody in a sense that he was put under peace bond. And Manitoba Rights Society was supporting him because he was young. And after the peace bond was placed, I think, he was not in the news for a couple of months. But eventually, when we finally learned about him, is a very sad incident to my understanding, knowledge. He went to Ontario to live with a family. I'm not sure whether he knew them before or something, but he lived with the family for some time. And on one strange day, Americans warned Canadian law enforcement agencies that they have seen some martyrdom videos related to Aaron Driver. So naturally, our law enforcement agencies quickly went and checked. And as it happened that when the law enforcement agencies arrived at his home where he was staying, he was about to leave, and he actually boarded in a taxi cab and where he blew himself, and of course, law enforcement agencies. But he was not alive. He, so that event really was very, I would say, triggering effect for me for two reasons. One, I was wondering why a regular kid within us uh, think of something at that level where he or she doesn't care about most important part is life. And secondly, in my postdoctoral study, where I studied pedagogical intervention in countering radicalization, in one of the seminars, coincidentally, I met the teacher of Aaron Driver. So Aaron Driver was going into adult collegiate. So her name is Jennifer Muir, I still remember. So for some reason, she heard about this project, my postdoc project, and she came to join. And she and then a lot of discussions with her. One of the things she told us at that time that Aaron Driver, they were, he was he was not a type of person who used to dominate discussion or let's say seeking attention. He was very docile, very gentle. But there are other people in her class who would have been quite extreme in their articulation of social issues, but not Aaron Brand. He was absolutely introvert, docile. However, there were signs of something which was not usual for him being a person like that, and she noticed that for some time. But then again, she lost track because he came to the newspaper, and that was beyond this discussion. So after talking to her, I realized that young people, for many, many reasons, can be drawn into extreme ideas, and which is possibly in our age and our time, it is pretty normal. There are many extreme ideas about, but there is a gap that our young fellows always try to share these things with someone they trust. Mostly it is peer group they trust very much, not even parents. I have my two sons, and I'm speaking from my own experience. So they want to talk about these extreme ideas, you know, something to do about society, social changes, something they see which which is bothering them, but they don't find actual source and trusted person to talk to. So there is a gap. Aaron Driver's case is significant in the sense that his father was he is a CAF member. So he was a major serving in Alberta. So there was a separation. His mother was separated, and he had stepmother, and with his family he couldn't get along. So he left his father's home and started living in Winnipeg. Then again he went to Ontario. So he was seeking some kind of support, psychosocial support. And one of the important elements in his life at that time happened is he converted to Islam. And maybe he was influenced by who knows. But again, when somebody converts to a new religion, is really problematic because in cases of the cases that we studied with regards to terrorism, that newly converted folks, they want to redeem their something in the past, and they exaggerate the teachings of religion in a very great way in many ways. So that is one of the points. However, Aaron Driver was referred to some Muslim group for counseling and other things. So I'm not going there, but that was the time he was transitioning to a different ideas, different ideologies. So I ended up writing something in my book chapter that where is that space our young folks can go and share their extreme ideas, whatever it is, safely. Where is that space? My focus is in this project, which is funded by Public Safety Canada, or 3 years project, and this is the output. We started thinking about, and we brought educators like this in Awamda. We have a core group of educators. And over the past 3 years, we just spoke and spoke, we discussed hours and hours, because there are many things available in terms of toolkit intervention. My focus was not that. My focus is to learn from you, because you are the teacher. I teach at university, but there's a little mature folks. But I was interested in K-12, the period where adolescence and the change of transition of ideas. So over the 3 years, we spent hours talking to you folks, and educators one side, and then we brought stakeholders, ethnocultural group, school administrators, principals also. Our idea was that what is really going on, and how we can create a space for dialogue and discussions safely without judging anything, without commenting about anything, but to give them a space. I also say that in today's world, this technology, in so many ways, it has manifested. Now we have AI. It has disempowered teachers in many ways. I mean, I'm old enough, I can claim that in 80s, 90s, when we went to school, our main source of knowledge was teachers. What a teacher says, that was evidentially true, even more than that our parents, because teachers, science, maths, whatever in the subject, teachers are the, you know, semi-god, because that is the truth. But now it is not. Even when I teach, I regularly teach from 2019, somebody is Googling and other things. So these kind of things, I say that it is disempowering, because somehow people have these varieties of sources of knowledge, information. They just cross-check. Even if you say something, especially in the case of social science teachers like you talk about social issues, global issues, conflict issues, polarizing, incidences, and it has a lot of interpretations. There is no end of interpretations in today's world, right? So which one is correct? Nobody knows. But my idea in this project and this toolkit, I'm coming to this toolkit later on, is that if you have this edge over students that yes, I know more than you because I have authentic sources. So that legitimacy, somehow, we worked very hard to produce. This is the first step, is not the end goal. Our end goal is to continuously talk to you and support you with other resources too. But to empower you so that you have that resource authenticity, legitimacy. So that is a long context, but I have to tell you. Now coming to the point of toolkit. So we call it resource book. So here we have summarized what we have heard over the past 3 years. And we just kept it very simple because I know you are overwhelmed, all of you. You have so many things to teach, and then we are not here to influence you that, okay, here's another one. No ways. It is just for your assistance. If you see something and if you want to know something, that is all about, we have kind of summarized it from our talk. There are many sources we have cited so that you have other sources if you want to go and see and browse yourself to find various things. So here you'll find we have started from very basic. What is the definition? Problem with the definition is there is hardly any definition. In social science field, these issues are so diversified, let me put it like that, and so contextual, because in our society, Canada, something happens, it is not equal to something is happening in France, for example. Something which is going on in the British society is not equal to American societies. Highly contextual. And that is why the difficulty of definition. But again, we have to start somewhere. So we have put a very generic definition of radicalization to violence. Our own point that we emphasize is that radicalization, the word, is not to be criminalized. There are many radicals in our world who have brought positive changes in our society. So let's not, convolute that idea of radicalism. But what we are interested about in this whole project is what leads some group to violence. That is the part when violence comes in, and when people choose violence over non-violence. Of course, we have encountered the examples of ANC, Nelson Mandela. Everybody knows it. Mandela tried his best, non-violence, but we must not forget ANC had a very tough militant wing as well, and they created havoc in South Africa, right? And even if you're talking about Gandhiji's non-violent movement, do not again forget that parallel to Gandhiji's non-violent movement in then British India, there was a whole-scale military led by the gentleman who's called Azad Hind Force, is called. So always with the non-violent group, there is a violent group exist. So it is nothing anomaly that non-violence is the best thing people have exemplified over the history. It's not like that. So we are only interested about what brings someone to the stage that he or she think that violence is the only way to do something. So that is our main focus. Radicalization, extremism, violence, these are the key words we started in this book. And then what we did is we tried to tell you that there are some common signs, very common generic signs that you might notice in your students in day-to-day life. But we have stopped short of telling you what to do, because I am not there in this project going to tell you what you should do. That is not my what you call it, recommendation or something. It's up to you, because it is again contextual, because school board varies, your administration varies, your own method of intervention varies, right? So intervention part is up to you. But we are telling you that look out for these signs. Maybe these are the signs of somebody is having extreme views. But whether these extreme views will be translated into violence, it is up to you. You measure, you judge, then you intervene. In this whole booklet, we have hardly spoke about law enforcement. So if you think about the trajectory of people accepting extreme ideas and then proceed into several stages up to committing violence, law enforcement agencies' role is different. Our role is very different. We are not with law enforcement agencies in any circumstances. We are talking about social issues, why and how our people become extreme. So there are drivers we have mentioned, and we have just said that these are drivers because again it's social changes. Imagine over the past 2 decades, the landscape of extremism has changed. In the first decade of this century, we were all tied up with Islamist extremism, something related to Islam, Muslims, because it was the reign of, or the era of global war on terror. Americans have unleashed these whole ideas, and we all jumped in, with them, and everybody wanted to do something with this kind of religion-driven extremism. So it was the first decade. In the second decade, just see how it is changing. The Arab Spring happened in 2011 in Syria and other MENA countries, and the civil war started, lawlessness started prevailing in some part of Syria, Iraq, and the rise of birth of ISIS. And ISIS is such a prolific terror organization in our history of studies that it could successfully motivate hundreds and thousands of foreign fighters. This is the first time in history. After the Spanish Civil War, when you might know Papinu Latino battalion from our country joined to fight Franco, but after that, possibly this is the first time hundreds and thousands of Western educated people joined the ranks of ISIS, right? So it is changing. And after 2016, again, we see the downfall of this group, these ideologies downsided, and the rise of right-wing extremism. We call it Trump effect 1.0, then later on 2.0. But see, the change happens. Nowadays, we hardly talk about faith-driven ideologies. We are much talking about ideologically driven extremism. And this ideology is mostly grounded in right-wing, neo-Nazi and white supremacy movement that is going on till 2016. So in this book, what we did is we kept it very contextually light for you, and just to give you some sources and told you that these are the things happening. We are fully aware that this booklet will be outdated within a couple of years, something new will come. Who knows? And that is the whole business of extremism, because some social things happen somewhere, we call it trigger events, and then it happens, we'll be started talking about something else, right? But as a starter, our humble effort is to convince you that if you have this booklet, if you browse through some pages, it might help you in detecting something that you see unusual amongst your students. In this book, we have just one page. We have very lightly mentioned about symbols, symbologies. But if you visit our website, www.erimca.org, you'll find a whole library of symbols we have kept. This is just one page as a sample, but we have compiled over 400 symbols in a library from various sources. So if you just type it out, you can find the details of the symbols. Why symbols are important? With this explanation, and we have heard from teachers on various occasions that students come to the classes with some tattoos or some symbols drawn into their bags or books or something, and it is very benign. I mean, symbol, it means so many things. But if you are aware of these resources, and in the future we are going to develop an app for you so that you can install it in the phone, and you can just take a shot and send it to us. App itself will determine some suggestion, but if you want to draw our attention, you can send it to us. We can analyze for you, and you can have a response that okay, this might be related to this group or that group. So at least you have that edge about symbols and symbologies, because most of the extreme groups, they use symbols for explaining their visions, missions, and the most fascinating part, ladies and gentlemen, about symbols is the history, because many of these right-wing and white supremacist groups use medieval symbols for some weird reasons. They do use, especially if you are aware the group, the base neo-Nazi group that was found in Winnipeg, and it was uncovered by Ryan Thorpe of Winnipeg Free Press journalist. So if you look at that group, their symbology, they used runic alphabet. So runic alphabet is medieval, alphabets used by the Vikings and Scandinavian countries. So this runic alphabet, and this is why symbology is important, because if you know or see something, then you can trace back the history and why somebody has adopted such symbols. And finally, I would stop here by saying that this book is our first effort, and we have sponsored PD Sage conference because we thought that this is the best way we can reach out to you. Instead of reaching out to you individually or small forums, possibly this is the best way. So that you know that we are here. I live in this city. I work and live, so you can reach me anytime. Our group, Linda and others, we all live here. So you can reach us anytime you want, and if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to explain further for you if you need it. And as I said, that intervention is not our recommendation. We don't work in the intervention spectrum because it is possibly next step, and it could be our next project to understand how and what best intervention method could be. And it is, as I said, it is highly sensitive in terms of talking about and stopping someone, all these things. And I think on final note, I would say that our project is something very novel in a sense that we, for the first time in Canada, we have reached out to you today, all teachers, educators. And I tried this approach in my postdoc because I learned that if we talk about open a space of dialogue with young fellows about what is happening in our society or globally, there is a benefit. Because often we have heard the other side that, well, by talking, are we giving them space? But I think that it is necessary. And it is necessary to open up this space because you might not know that these young folks are already exposed to these things. You might not know. Because in today's social media landscape, I'm sure you know, but let me tell you once again that these messaging apps, special Telegram signal and the other one, so WhatsApp. So these messaging apps and Reddit, of course, there, but there it has created a whole huge echo chamber of extremism. You can subscribe to a group. I do. We do follow some for our research purposes, and people are talking about whole bunch of things. Five steps to do something. These are all available. I mean, so anybody, our young folks, you may not know they are already there with the pseudonym and other things. They're already there. So this is why I am strongly in favor of talking about it. There is no harm. I don't think there is a harm, and my statement is backed up by research, years of research, that the more we talk, it will ease up the tension, and if there is a dialogue, young folks might be convinced not to follow those groups. Thank you. Question and answer, if you have any.
So I get the importance of dialogue. So would you recommend, if you're hearing a student sharing views that would be considered extremist, to fight the urge to tell them that they're incredibly wrong, but just to get them to have the conversation, just to continue the conversation? Is that what?
Exactly. I mean, my suggestion would be, and I did teach a course from 2019 until last year in University of Winnipeg. It's a fourth year undergrad course. The title was Terrorism and Counterterrorism, Special Topics in Geopolitics. Look at the title, such a heavy title, right?
Sure.
I mean, straight up, you know. So,
It's a nice light topic.
I mean, look, I mean, there is no discussion, end of discussion, terrorism. And so what I the way I approach this is that I always try to remember that there is a reason for someone to become like that. You have heard Mubin Sheikh today in the afternoon. So Mubin is very well known, but there are many other cases that I know. People have adopted violence for different reasons. So I would strongly suggest that please engage the student formally or informally, the way you have time, energy, and interest. But in our book also, we have time and again said that if you do not intervene, it's an opportunity missed. I know it is going to, maybe an overstatement. You don't have time. You have your own life, and etc. All are said and done, but you're just an hour of talking, or 50 minutes or 10 minutes informal talking, engaging the young fellow might deter him from traveling that path. Might. And there is no research in this field. Okay, how many people got de-radicalized with the lecture of Ahmed? There is nothing like that. No. But it is totally, out in the open. But we have seen in this project that if we talk, if we engage, there is a benefit. And young folks, we don't blame them because there are so many things happening. You'll be very surprised to know, because I do follow these groups very intensely. Recently, I encountered a homeschooling group in the US, Midwest. And what is interesting about this group is their syllabus has been drawn from 1930s Nazi curriculum. And this whole group of students are being taught about the ideology of supremacy, Aryan supremacy, and this is going on right now.
Yeah.
So this is the point that even schooling, we are talking about public schools, right? You are all in public school settings. There are private schools, right? And there are home schools. All are legal. So we don't know. So our job is public school in this project. So we are talking about public school. And I do see value that if you engage with a little bit of difficulty and discomfort, there is a chance that the student might see something else after you talk. And I mean, the problem that we saw with teachers in this project is that how to start, right? I mean, there are so many things. And if you Google, if you go to ADL site, Anti-Defamation League in the US, or the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, there are so many stuffs out there. So in this project, what I'm trying to do, very narrow down to you, Manitoba, Manitoba. This one, and we are here. As you see me, I see you, I live here, you have my phone number, email. So you know me, and you know my background. Me means our team. You know Kevin Lopa. You know Kim Bear, right? So you know, and we know each other, so you can trust us that, okay, these folks are telling me something about this meme or these symbols or this event, which is legitimate. Because there are so many things out there. Sorry, Mira, go ahead.
Yeah, where we actually work, our school vision, we have to follow a process because everything's based on process and policy and school vision. So we actually have a process, it's called ETRA.
Violence reduction.
And so it's really not talking to kids, it's quickly documenting and collecting data so that we can collect data for the next 12 years to make sure so that somebody knows somewhere along the line that but that's what we have, that's our process, I'm being honest with you.
100%, and let me add to your rule is that in England, for some weird reason, they came out with the same idea. They call it PREVENT, PREVENT, PREVENT.
Yeah.
If you Google, you'll find the whole document, and they started almost a decade ago. And within this PREVENT program, they have specifically designed one program, it's called Channel. So under this, and it's a national program and legislated in the parliament. So under this legislation, you as a teacher, ma'am, is responsible to detect and report.
For everything, absolutely.
Exactly, and just imagine how many cases they received over the past 10 years. And overwhelming case was false positive. Because there is hardly anything. Young people was upset, he said something and that was reported. And I know about Victra very much. I assessed it when I studied it and all these things. You are very right. We are not saying, or we are not in this way of saying that threat assessment school has their own policy that is totally fine. Our appeal is to you directly as teachers, that please engage, because one of the mottos of our whole project is to engage. Because violent threat assessment is a process, you're very right. So in this process, if you see something, then how to intervene, and administration is involved and other things, law enforcement, that is their part. But what we are appealing to is that you are the first person possibly to understand something is not normal. And even just imagine in our whole project, we are not talking about terrorism or counter. We are talking about social polarization, the extremism that happens everyday life. Right now, what is happening? Just think about the conflict unfolding in Middle East. That is going to radicalize a whole bunch of young people of both sides. So how you are talking about it, and people would have extreme ideas. That is not a problem. But that should not be translated into violent actions in any forms or fashions. And like Victra, there are many programs like that. In the US they have, but we don't recommend those things because that is not our purview. We are very much social science approach, talking, dialogue, opening space, listening, and understanding the problem, because in overwhelming case, ma'am, we have seen in our past research, there are some triggering events. There has been something happened somewhere that has really started a regular person to think otherwise. There has been something. So you are possibly after the parents, and in our society, again, with due respect to our lot of working parents, parents possibly don't have a lot of energy to keep an eye on adolescent teens kids and this age group, they don't possibly. And we have seen in the morning, movie was referring as terrorists. So it's case, right? I mean, although in a lighter note, but our teens are really, they have different ideas than we had when we were teens. So teachers are actually the frontier of our, this intervention. That is what we need.
Those are two, I think, on a different note, and this is important. We also come from places where policies and systems are not found. In some school divisions, we don't operate by system, but there's nothing, like it's on you. Like you have a system and you want to follow that because that's how the hierarchical setting works. In some school divisions, that system is different. So that's one thing, or there is no system. So that's something we take into account. But to also reflect on what Kawser is talking about, during the current crisis in the Middle East, there are students, and I know, that are feeling under pressure because they can't say what they want to say or how they feel. Because the current atmosphere, the current environment, the current, I don't know, the climate is pro one side, not the other. So those voices become invisible. And they see the school division, the schools, the teachers all standing for one part of the conflict, one side of the conflict, and they're over there going, what about us?
Right.
That can lead to also to extreme thinking and extreme, extreme environments or hostility. And I'm trying to navigate that because it is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I want to open spaces for the students to say how they feel, what they feel, how their communities are dealing with this conflict. But I am also an employee of those school divisions. So if I am, and things can be easily misunderstood or taken out of context. So again, context based, it is hard.
Totally.
So it's easier to just say, you know what, I'm sorry that you're feeling this way. I hope you feel better. Yeah, a lot of teachers do.
Or that you have to, or that you can't take a side.
Exactly.
That's what we have, that's kind of our policy line, like, don't take a side. You
Sure.
have to be safe.
But that is hard when your family are impacted.
Yeah.
When you are, this conflict impacts you on a personal level. You try so hard to not take sides. You are always trying to, it is hard. And so how do you create that environment in which teenagers, 16-year-old kids, who do take sides, and they're impacted by TikTok 100%.
So
how do you create that environment?
absolutely. And Izzettin's point is absolutely relevant here because in our school environment, if one group feels that they cannot really speak their mind for many reasons, because young people are, they have different mental, setup, so they will be marginalized, and their voices, as they are marginalized, they will start, thinking a little different than the mainstream folks, and this is how the grievance starts. One of our elements in our book is grievance, because grievance, when it is accumulated over the period of time, it is one of the ingredients of justifying violence against other group.
Yeah.
And this grievance is one of the fundamental ways is that when you marginalize someone, and there is no avenue of talking.
Because of my research, I've been writing and I published a paper on second generation immigrants. And it's a totally different game, totally different phenomenon for them than their parents when it comes to extremism and radicalization. First generation immigrants, they come here, they feel like they've been given an opportunity, that I'm thankful, I'm in a country, I'm gonna work hard, build a life. Second generation immigrants who are born in this country see their lives totally different. This is my country, I was born here. Why are you making me, why are you marginalizing me?
Right.
The power dynamic, they don't accept it as their parents do. So a lot of the extremism you're talking about, research points out that it comes from second generation immigrants.
Mostly.
It is interesting.
Mostly. And even I would add with these comments that in today's context, never in our history, we have been impacted so much with the imported conflict. The conflict elsewhere is not in Canada, right? It didn't happen here, but we are so much impacted. We are so much polarized. Trump is in the USA. We have nothing to do with Trump's white supremacist movement at all. But look at us, how impacted we were. Even a province like this, Manitoba, we have had a neo-Nazi group. I mean, we all boast that nothing happens here. But look at a neo-Nazi group operating right here until Ryan thought of them unveiled. So this is possibly a very interesting part of our journey in this century, that we are impacted by so many external events. It extremely polarizes our intergroup cohesion. In some of the media interviews, I strongly express my opinion that political leaders, their words matter, and it matters a lot. And if we are not careful in choosing our words, it will further polarize our society and destroy intergroup cohesion. We are proud of multiculturalism, but multiculturalism is at test now. In many Western countries, they are denouncing this environment. In France, in many of the European countries, even in the UK, the British Home Secretary very recently, in public system, she said that she is not in favor of opening up schools for a whole large number of immigrant children. So this is our tension in our multicultural societies. And the reason, and my personal motivation is that in order to keep our society multicultural, diverse, we have to really be proactive. And I hear today in many of the sessions since morning that one of the, I think, dominant approach in this issue is, okay, we have heard, yes, we understand, we are not like this, so forget it. So this approach might work in a better, as you say, that okay, we need to remain neutral. But let me tell you very openly and frankly, neutrality doesn't help. In this case, it doesn't help. It aggravates. Because at the end of the day, you know what is right and wrong. I'm not going to tell you which is right and wrong. And you don't have to agree with me either. But you possibly know which is right and wrong. And this is our effort to give you resources. Read yourself, find yourself which is right and wrong. But neutrality will destroy us eventually. Neutrality doesn't help.
Get that on a t-shirt.
You always come for everything.
Good idea.
That's actually a good slogan. You should make that part of this.
Yeah, video.
Yeah, sure, too.
No, sorry, I'm being politically incorrect, but I do want to say this because I mean this is what it is. I mean, if you do not take a stance, stopping this kind of polarization, it will take us to a very different trajectory. And as I said, in many ways, you can search my name in Google, you'll find in many of the interviews I said that conspiracy theories, it is another element we have not touched much, but this is very much conspiracy theories nowadays. So, for example, forest fire. Forest fire happened, but can you imagine how people tweak this forest fire and reason of forest fire into conspiracy theories? There are enormous ideas that it has happened for Trudeau, it has happened for this company and that company. You see, the idea of conspiracy theory is so abundant nowadays, you simply cannot escape it. You are reading it anyways. And this is my point, that neutrality, okay, I understand, I don't critique school admin, and we have some sessions in the future, we are going to talk to principals as well.
Principals are the worst. I am.
No, it's okay. I mean, my point is, we have to really, from our side, we are from the same core group of this project. We are trying to talk as much as possible. And we are inviting principals and other groups, stakeholders, that let's talk about it and see if you disagree something, tell us. We'll definitely listen. But if you do not talk, if you do not engage, then these things will fester and we'll lose more young people. Ladies and gentlemen, in CJP Montreal, the height of ISIS recruitment, whole bunch of female Canadians, teenage Canadians fled. Whole bunch of it. Just imagine, the heart of Montreal, CJP. They went. And one returnee, just day before yesterday, she returned with 4 or 5 children. And she was married to a top ISIS commander and Canadian. She returned to Toronto. And court yesterday, a little bit lenient, I mean, in terms of she can go outside home. She came back in March, I think, this year. So the idea is that these things are pretty normal. People would think of like her, that it is okay to go there and all these things. And many of them are returning, those who are alive. Yeah. So we have to really cope up with all those changes that we have in our society.
The phenomenon of lone wolf.
Right.
There's lots of that.
Any other questions?
Lots.
Lord. No, it's we don't we don't pretend that we have answers to all of your questions. So it is just an effort, and we will keep engaging you in small forums in the future. And for you, I occasionally go and speak to Team Bear School. Each year, once or twice, I just go and speak to his class, small 20-30 students. So if you need me to talk, just reach out to me. You have my address. I'll definitely come and speak to your class in a very generic way, what people think and other things. So I always go there, I volunteer. It doesn't turn into anything, I just go. Thank you so much. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Miguel.
Sure.
Thank you.
That was fast.